Hey everybody, my name is Grimace. You're watching The Bespoke Woodsman. Today I'm going to show you what I do when I get to camp. There are a couple of different hiking styles, or backpacking styles. People who like to hike and people who like to camp. And how you go on base weight and how you go on mileage and those sorts of things really play into that. So on the one extreme, you have like ultra hikers, right? They just want to put in huge miles, and the camping is really just a means to an end. If I want to go 30 miles and then go 30 more miles the next day, I have to sleep in the woods. So I'm going to carry very little so that I can travel those 60 miles, but just enough to get me through the night so that I'm safe. On the other end, you've got extreme campers. These are people who don't want to put in very big miles. They really want to get into the backcountry so that they can camp. They like sleeping outdoors, they like being comfortable in camp, and so they might carry a heavier base weight and do fewer miles. Most people fall somewhere in the middle on the spectrum. I tend to go a little mileage heavy, lighter weight. You may be different, that's okay. But one thing, no matter what you like to do, whether you like to hike, whether you like to camp, whether you like to do a little bit of both, one thing everyone likes is getting into camp, because that means that you can put your feet up, you can focus on recovery. If you're a heavy camper, then you're finally in camp. If you're a heavy hiker, then you can finally stop hiking, and it's probably night. So you may be rolling into camp pretty late. So I'm going to show you what I do when I get to camp. My process, my chores, and how I handle the limited amount of time I have in camp. Because the majority of my trips are solo hikes, I spend very little time in camp. It's not super interesting to me anyway. When I'm with other people, I will spend a little bit more time in camp because most other people like to spend more time in camp. But the process is the same either way. It's just more a matter of how much sitting around time you have. But the actual camp chores don't differ much from one to the next. So I'm going to hike in a little farther. I'll see you up the trail. It's an absolutely beautiful day in the San Gabriel Mountains. We are expected to have some weather. Looks like a storm is rolling in. That's good news because this time last year our snowpack was at about 153% of normal. Obviously a very good year, and it got us finally out of the drought conditions we've been under for years. This year we're only at 53% of normal for this time of year, so it's way down. Having a storm roll in, having a couple storms roll in is really good. We're supposed to have some weather, some precipitation really through the week. Today is Saturday. I believe the forecast calls for rain, at least in Los Angeles, and I assume in the mountains also, through like Wednesday or Thursday. So that's very good. If you or anyone you know is in the Pacific Crest Trail class of 2020, that's very good news. But it's also very good news locally, because it does mean that in our later summer trips, we have a better chance of having some water coming out of the springs, water in the creeks. Water is obviously very important to a backpacker. So it's very exciting. And the nice thing about the San Gabriels is no one wears weather like they do. Man, a storm looks absolutely beautiful out here. You really can't go wrong. It's just such a beautiful set of mountains. And whether it's rain or shine, they're so pretty. Most camp chores are really easy to remember because they're for your personal safety, they're for your comfort, they're for your peace of mind. There's one, however, that's very easy to forget. because it's not for your safety, it's not for your peace of mind, it's for the peace of mind of the people back home, and that's checking in. That's why that's the number one thing I do when I get to camp. When I decide this is where I'm sleeping, I check in. I use the Spot Gen 3. Whether you use this, whether you use an InReach Mini by Garmin, whether you use just a text, if you've got someone that you're supposed to be checking in with, as soon as you stop and knowing that that's where you're going to be for the day, just hit check in, and now you've accomplished what you said you would do, and you can move on with the rest of your camp chores. Next thing I do is collect water. That can vary from trip to trip how I do it. Usually I'll have some sort of bladder, some sort of something to carry water in, and then I'll filter out of that into my bottles. So there's a water source across the way here. We'll head over there, we'll filter some water. There's some people over there, so I don't know if I'll be filming much, but you get the idea. We're gonna sweep some water into a bag, and we're gonna bring that bag back to camp. I don't usually bring camp shoes, but if I do, this is where I would switch into them. When I bring them, it's usually just a pair of bread bags, like just plastic bread bags. I use them as overmitts sometimes. You can use them to collect water in, and you can use them as camp shoes. So I would take off my regular shoes. Either way, I'm going to take off my shoes. I'm going to wash my feet. I'm going to get off any particulates that have found their way to my feet. I'm going to get rid of the sweat. I'm going to switch into camp shoes or into my regular shoes now. I don't get into my sleep socks yet. I wait until I'm in my tent for that, but I do at least just try to wash my feet and air them out a little bit. The next thing I do is I'm going to sweep my tent site. Wherever I'm going to put my tent, I'm going to sweep it to get rid of any rocks, any sticks, any pine cones, any snakes, any wildlife, any dung, any scat, anything that has gotten in the way that I don't want to put my tent on top of, so that I can lay it down and be ready to go. Because the next step after that is pitching the tent. The next step, if we hadn't already done it at the source, would be to filter our water now, or to fill water bottles if we hadn't done that at the source either. And we want that so that everything is in place for when we cook dinner, so that we can cook dinner. We're losing light at this point. If it hasn't already gotten dark, we're probably about to get dark. That's why we've already set up the tent. Now we just want to make dinner, and we're gonna hydrate our meal. So we're gonna boil water. We're gonna pour the meal into the bowl, into the pot. We're gonna wrap it in the cozy, and we're gonna hydrate the meal. I didn't bring anything on this trip, so we're not gonna do that on this trip, but that's the general idea here, is we're gonna boil any water we're boiling, we're gonna make our meal, we're gonna eat. While our meal is hydrating, that's the perfect time to go back to our tent, blow up our air mattress, blow up our pillow, get our quilt ready, wrap everything around, wrap the pad straps around the pad, anything that we need to get the tent ready for supper, for after supper, so when we go to bed, after we eat, we're good to go. So I'm gonna head over here, I'm gonna do that, and I'll catch you soon. Dinner should be fully hydrated by now, or pretty close to it. Eating dinner is obviously the easiest thing to remember, because that's all you've wanted to do this entire time. But then I followed that with the hardest thing to remember to do, and that's to take care of my body. So this is when I'm going to reapply any gurney goo. This is when I'm going to stretch before bed. This is very important. Stretch before bed. This is when I'll pull out my Rology mini cork ball. I'm going to roll out my feet. I'm going to stretch. I'm going to meditate. I'm going to do whatever I need to do to get my body and my mind ready to sleep and then to wake up the next morning and get hiking. And then that's more or less it. By then you're pretty much ready for bed. I think what I would normally do then is, if you haven't hung a bear bag, which I don't usually do, so you would have done that earlier, at least hung the line. Here's where I'd brush my teeth. Here's where I would take any vitamins I would need to take, or I like to take melatonin to help me sleep at night. This is when I would do all of that. Put everything in your bear bag, hang your bear bag, use a bear box, whatever you're using, and then get to bed. And that's it. Those are my camp chores. For the most part, it's pretty simple. Like I said, most of the things are designed for your safety, your comfort, your peace of mind, except for checking in, which is why I always do that first. I like to keep everything in a central location. I think if you start moving things around, like I'm going to do my massage over here, I'm going to do this over here, I'm going to collect water over here. I think one important thing to remember is anytime you return to camp with another piece, make it touch a central item. I like to use my backpack, for instance. Like, everything is always touching my backpack at some point. Even when I set up my tent, I put my backpack against it, so everything is there. That way nothing gets lost, nothing gets misplaced. I don't have to worry about the 8 different places that I put something. They're all in one spot. That's very important to me because I have a penchant for losing things even when I do that. So the one exception, obviously, is if you're hanging a bear bag, it's not going to be in that same location. That's pretty easy to remember because that's your food, and it's the last thing you do before you go to bed is you're going to put all of your breakfast for the next day, your food dish after you've cleaned it out. You're going to put your toiletries, your toothpaste, everything into that. So that's going to be the last thing you do. So you'll probably remember where that is. But everything else, I like to touch one central item. I do that when I break down camp the next morning too. So that's it. If you got any enjoyment out of this video, hope you'll click the like button. Hope you'll click thumbs down if you didn't. And hey, this channel is about hiking, backpacking gear. If those kinds of things interest you, I'd love to have you along. Why don't you click subscribe? Why don't you click the notification bell? That way you'll get updated anytime I post a new video, which I do usually every Tuesday morning. I'm trying to get a little better about that. But love to have you along. And hey, let's do this again sometime.